afternoon, everyone. Magandang hapon sa lahat. Okay, it is a pleasure to be here today and share with you all strategies on how to protect your enterprise network from unauthorized access and data theft from the perspective of a regulator. As a regulator specializing in IT and cybersecurity risk management of BSP-supervised financial institutions, securing networks amidst digitalization and growing threats can be very complex and daunting. This is because network perimeter, as we know it, is becoming almost non-existent. I think we've also learned this earlier in the presentations. And as we know it, most applications, systems, data, and business models can now be accessed via the internet or the cloud, and are increasingly becoming more integrated, interconnected, and open. And with the onslaught of persistent and evolving cyber threats lurking across the networks, organizations need to be creative in pursuing defensive strategies while embracing newer forms of technologies and innovation in the digital space. For the financial sector, the COVID-19 pandemic triggered an increased demand for digital payments and financial services. And this increased demand, again, along with the adoption of remote work arrangements, compelled financial institutions to accelerate their digitalization projects. Likewise, the emergence of technological breakthroughs in the field of data science, artificial intelligence, blockchain, the Internet of Things, and even the metaverse, provides greater opportunities for deepening financial innovation and inclusion. As you can see here in the next slide, of course, with the greater digital touch points brought about by these developments, there is now more elbow room and attack surface by which cyber threat actors can operate. Okay, indeed, at the onset of the pandemic, the BSP surveillance confirmed, the cyber attackers' propensity to capitalize on the COVID-19 situation. Okay, this include, launching of a variety of phishing attacks, COVID-19 themed phishing campaigns, and malicious websites, to more common threats such as ransomware, malware, and distributed denial of service attacks, among others. On the global front, as you can see here on the screen, ransomware remains a top concern, as threat actors are becoming more aggressive and even getting bolder, demanding higher ransom year on year, with the highest attempted ransom demand of $30 in 2020. Cyber criminals are also increasingly targeting, the supply chains or our third-party networks, as these attacks are more lucrative, okay, since they can compromise, hundreds or even thousands of victims with just a single breach. Okay, so what is BSP's key role when it comes to fostering digital innovation in cybersecurity? So in response to this evolving landscape, the BSP has been taking measures, okay, as early as 2013 to preserve public trust and confidence in the financial system. Okay, this is the BSP's mantra, and this serves as a guide in our policy directions and supervisory actions. Okay, the BSP has put in place comprehensive, cohesive, and principles-based and relevant policies and regulations to guide financial institutions in managing cyber risks. The BSP has also stepped up, a more proactive monitoring of the cyber environment, and that is basically done through our group, okay, and while promoting the resilience of the entire financial ecosystem. Okay, later I will share with you what are some of the initiatives of the BSP in doing these mandates. Okay. But then, while the BSP enforces regulations promoting safety and security of the cyber environment for the financial services sector, the BSP always makes sure and also are careful not to stifle the industry's quest for innovation and also in creativity in developing new products and services. So for the BSP, it's really about striking the right balance between safety and soundness on one hand and creativity on the other. So you can see here, these are just some of the policy frameworks of the BSP. So we've started way back in 2013, okay, and up to now. So the most recent one that we've issued was BSP Circular 1140. So we've issued that just this 2022. Okay, so these several regulations are all aimed at mitigating the effects of technology and cyber-related risk in financial institutions. So these regulations address, various facets of technology from social media, risk management, business continuity, multi-factor, you name it, we have it all. So we even have something about virtual asset service providers, and more recently, because of the digitalization and open economies that are happening worldwide, so we also have a circular on open finance framework. Okay. So taking off from these regulations on network and cybersecurity, allow me to share with you network security strategies, which I hope would be helpful in combating emerging and evolving threats in your respective organizations. So first strategy, I think you've heard this a while ago in the panel. No, don't forget the basics. Okay, so many of today's major cyber attacks and breaches actually emanate from simple lapses in foundational cyber hygiene. Okay, as such, it is critical for institutions to cover basic network security at all times. Okay, so under the existing BSP regulations, financial institutions are mandated to maintain, very basic, up-to-date, and accurate inventory of information and network assets, as a first line of defense, which would enable them to provide accountability, design and implement appropriate security controls, and even track and detect unauthorized changes. Okay, another fundamental control to enhance network security is through system hardening, or what we call the secure configuration, to include, disabling unnecessary services, default settings, implementing robust password policies, and maintaining backup configurations, among others. Okay. The third one here is about ensuring sound vulnerability management. Okay, that will promptly identify available security patches to technology, software, and network assets, evaluate criticality, test and deploy patches within an appropriate time frame. Okay, this is particularly vital as, cyber threat actors continuously seek ways to weaponize new or even existing vulnerabilities. And last but not the least of these four basic controls is network segmentation. And I think this is also have been discussed earlier in the panel, or what we call the grouping of network servers, applications, data, and users into security domains or zones. And of course, applying corresponding security controls and mechanism. So of course, having that proper network segmentation prevents an intruder from propagating exploits or laterally moving across internal networks. Okay, so for this one, under our regulation, segmentation can be done, based on role or functionality. For instance, administrators can group networks based on, internal networks. You can create guest networks, or even those that are internet-facing hosts. Okay, so using various techniques and approaches. I think I've heard earlier about the use of the DMZ, or the demilitarized zone. We also heard about jump box, virtualization, containerization, air gapping, among others. Okay. And of course, again, in designing network segments, it is important to apply the principles of least privilege and need to know in order to effectively restrict adversary or even innocent insider access. Okay. The second strategy will be about employing defense in-depth strategy. We've been incorporating this in most of our regulations and even in our advisories to financial institutions. And again, this is important, especially in combating, the advanced, persistent, and evolving threats. Okay, and of course, it is imperative for institutions to apply this strategy just to make sure that, a failure in one control would be compensated by another control. Okay, so I think this approach, effectively delays or disrupts an attacker's ability to progress within the attack sequence. Okay, so for example, I'll give an example. In our recent memoranda on malware prevention, we've actually recommended financial institutions to adopt a layered and integrated malware strategy, okay, including, adoption of data integrity checks, antivirus or malware solutions, endpoint protection, anomaly detection, and enhanced security awareness programs. Okay, so with this one, likewise, these controls can also be supplemented by other controls. I think we've heard this earlier about, multi-factor authentication, what else? Application whitelisting, email sandboxing, fraud management system, and our favorite phrase for the day is about the zero trust approaches. Okay, next, for the third security strategy is about, prioritizing high-risk assets, or what we call the crown jewels. Okay, so given, of course, the sheer volume of information assets, network components and data, which organizations need to protect, and with very limited resources. Okay, so again, we've always emphasized this with our financial institutions, is to adopt a risk-based approach where, of course, high-risk assets are prioritized. Okay, again, inherent in the business of banking, okay, is the collection, preservation, and safekeeping of information. Okay, not only pertaining to the financial assets, the deposits entrusted with the banks, but also the personal and confidential information relating to their customers. Okay, so with that, the BSP puts strong emphasis for financial institutions to protect client information, again, as a way to preserve public trust and confidence. And for the BSP, as you can see here on the right side of the screen, it covers, our regulatory framework also covers standards and policy guidelines on securing information throughout its life cycle. So starting from handling, storage, transmission, up to the disposal stage. Okay. And then, of course, the level of protective controls shall depend on the sensitivity and criticality of the information. Okay, so as an example, sensitive information to include, your system documentation, application source code, production transaction data. Of course, these are expected to have more extensive controls to guard against data alteration or breaches. So for this one, application controls may also be employed. I think we've heard speakers say about this, about the data encryption, data leak protection or prevention, and even remote wiping capabilities, among others. The next approach, okay, is taking a holistic and cyclical approach. Okay. So again, this is, if you're, for the banks, I'm sure they're familiar with this diagram. This is part of the Circular 982. And this is also what we espouse for our financial institutions. Okay, so I would like to emphasize at this point that, network security is not just about a collection of system and tools, such as, having the firewalls, IDS, IPS, and even the SIEM systems. Okay. Organizations, of course, need to be wary of what they call the tool sprawl, okay, or having too many network protection tools without perceivable benefits in terms of protecting or even detecting cyber attacks. Okay, so having the technology without the underlying policies and processes, as well as the skilled people to operate them, would do little to enhance security. Okay, thus, a dynamic interplay of people, policies, standards, and processes and technology must be considered in designing our security programs. Okay, again, moreover, in managing network security risk and even cybersecurity in general, they also must follow, the continuing cycle, this 6 cycle of identifying, preventing, detecting, responding, recovering, and testing. Of course, to ensure resilience, and of course, ensuring continuing improvements. Of course, we would want our financial institutions to, gradually improve their capabilities and their maturity vis-a-vis the changing threat landscape and also technological developments. So again, I would just like to share with you an industry cybersecurity playbook that we've issued in 2021. And this also follows a phase approach, covering the incident handling methodology from, preparation, detect and analyze, contain and eradicate, recover, and conduct post-incident activities. So actually, this playbook has been developed in coordination with the banking industry, okay, and it's practically covers, practical steps, very detailed steps and procedures which can help, organizations respond to ransomware incidents. Okay, so again, I would just like to highlight, because this is a long document. So, but just to highlight one key control there, if you don't want to, pay the ransom. So make sure that you prepare. The first step there, when you prepare, it's not when you're already infected. So you have to prepare early, even without, the ransomware being there. Because once the ransomware is there, that's already too late. And again, under the preparation phase, a key control there is, of course, to maintain offline backups, okay, including, gold images of critical systems. As many ransomware variants attempt to find and delete any accessible backups. Again, that document also has some links on, some of the resources that, financial institutions can use to respond to ransomware attacks. Okay, and again, of course, having backup is not enough. Okay, it's also prudent for them, for financial institutions, to regularly verify the integrity of these backups. And of course, test the restoration process to ensure that it is working. And for the 5th, and I think this is the last strategy that I'll share with you, is about harnessing situational awareness and strategic alliances. And again, the fight against data breaches is not for us alone. Okay? We cannot fight it alone. So again, it depends on our ability to raise, the level of our situational awareness against, latest tactics, techniques, and procedures of cyber threat actors. And again, so of course, we need, the third-party service providers to give us, threat intelligence. We also have to utilize, information sharing platforms where you can collaborate with fellow industry participants. Okay, and of course, form strategic alliances and collaborative engagements. Again, with key stakeholders, to include, of course, us, the regulators, and of course the government, who's also been really working hard to making sure the environment is, secure. Okay, and of course the law enforcement agencies, of course, for us to really, catch the culprit and, deter these cyber criminal activities. Okay, and of course, having this in place would actually enhance, threat intelligence, and again, it will. The ultimate goal is really about quickly identifying, preventing, and responding to emerging and persistent threats. Okay. So allow me to just share with you some of our initiatives, industry-wide initiatives that are in line with the strategies that I've discussed earlier. So first is the BSP is developing the Financial Services Cyber Resilience Plan. That will serve as the primary framework covering strategies and plans to strengthen cyber resilience in the financial services industry. That's a mouthful, but actually it's just to align with what Sir Alan discussed earlier about the National Cybersecurity Plan. Okay, because right now the BSP is considered a critical infrastructure, CII. And as a CII, we've also been designated as the CERT for the banking sector to include all supervised financial institutions. So again, of course, we've already had all the regulations in place, the supervisory mechanisms like threat surveillance and also the reporting of incidents by our institutions. But then with this plan, it's like putting all of this together and having that mechanism to collaborate and cooperate also with the wider community, not just for the financial sector. Okay. And then we are also in the development stage of implementing. Again, this is the tools part. The first part is the policy, okay, which is the FSCRP. Now we are also developing a tool, which is what we call the Advanced SupTech Engine for Risk-Based Compliance, or Asterisk. Okay, this is a unified RegTech and SupTech solution, which we hope will streamline and automate, regulatory supervision, reporting, and compliance assessment of the supervised institutions' cybersecurity risk management. Okay, so we're targeting to release these by the end of this year. Okay, and I think the third part here is about cooperating and collaborating. Again, we've been espousing this also under Circular 982. But for us to really, walk the talk, the BSP, of course, engages with the Bankers Association of the Philippines, Cyber Incident Database, or the BAPSID. Okay, so this is a web-based portal and an industry cyber threat and best practices sharing platform. Okay, where participants, the banks, and we've recently expanded this to cover even the non-BAP members like the large e-money issuers and also the virtual asset providers in the country. Basically to report incidents and threats anonymously, receive threat intelligence feeds, and of course, this is also a platform where the BSP shares the restricted threat advisories, the advisories that we don't really publish in the website. Okay. And lastly, of course, as part of the massive cyber awareness and digital literacy campaign, we've actually launched this, I think, as early as 2020. We have this team called E-Safety is Everyone's Responsibility. Okay. And we've also been coordinating with relevant government agencies and industry associations. I think CICC has also been a part of this. And also, we've discussed this also through NSHAC. Okay, for a joint, consumer protection campaign, especially with the onslaught of, phishing attacks affecting our clients. Okay, and message amplification, basically to raise overall cyber awareness in the country. Again, just a recap of what the network strategies that I've shared earlier. As you can see, most of these are really just a recap or reiteration of what have been discussed earlier. But that's not intentional, so it just so happened. And basically the 5 network security strategies that are here are: first, of course, don't forget the basics. Second, employ defense in-depth approach. Third is prioritize high-risk assets. The fourth one will be to take a holistic and cyclical approach in managing those risks. And lastly is to harness situational awareness and strategic alliances. And for easy recall, this is simply, we can term it as depth. Okay. And of course, if I can share with you, depth means the quality of being intense or extreme. Okay, and in the same manner, we are calling upon our supervised institutions and of course our counterparts also in the industry to be intense or extreme in our approach in strengthening cyber defenses and capabilities. We should never be complacent. Of course, given that cyber threat actors are becoming, highly skilled and even relentless. And of course, again, we don't have to forget about the basic. We must fortify our defenses, constantly patching vulnerabilities and weaknesses. And of course, lastly, we must closely monitor our environment and harness collaboration among stakeholders, the private and the government working together. And this is, of course, to achieve a higher state of cyber resilience for the Philippines. Again, thank you and a pleasant day to everyone.